Maundy Thursday. A reading from St. Luke chapter 2. When the hour came, Jesus took his place at the table, and the apostles with him. He said to them, I have eagerly desired to eat this Passover with you before I suffer. For I tell you, I will not eat it until it is fulfilled in the kingdom of God. Then he took a cup, and after giving thanks he said, Take this and divide it among yourselves. For I tell you that from now on I will not drink of the fruit of the vine until the kingdom of God comes. Then he took a loaf of bread, and when he had given thanks, he broke it and gave it to them, saying, This is my body, which is given for you. Do this in remembrance of me. And he did the same with the cup after supper, saying, This cup that is poured out for you is the new covenant in my blood. Francesco di Bernardone, founder of the Franciscan order of monks, was born in Assisi, in Umbria, in about 1181, and died there on the 3rd of October, 1226. He is better known to us as St. Francis of Assisi. Born into a wealthy merchant family, Francis decided to take literally the command of Christ to take nothing for the journey. He renounced all material goods, not even keeping a spare robe or pair of sandals. Ever since then, poverty has been a cornerstone of Franciscan spirituality. St. Francis, and later his band of followers, either worked or begged for the small amount of food they needed to sustain life, and gave away the rest. No doubt influenced by his childhood in the house of a merchant, to whom material possessions were not only a symbol of status, but in themselves the means by which more was accumulated, Francis saw all material goods as intense obstacles to a life of communion with Christ. Things, stuff, objects that fill up our lives gradually become, by the weight of their existence, a physical barrier to spiritual freedom. Money, possessions, status. The acquiring of all these things demands energy, time and focus, which Francis felt would be better directed towards praising God and living in his presence. The acquisition of objects involves fear. With accumulation comes fear of loss and the consequent struggle to retain a grip on what are far from being necessities for our existence. Liberated from the struggles to acquire and the fear of subsequent loss, Francis would move lightly through the world, unhindered by baggage. For most of us today, a similar dramatic shedding of all our material goods and responsibilities would not only be almost impossible, it would be inadvisable. But there is a middle path to be explored, a way that treads carefully through the landscape cluttered with unnecessary material and status objects, taking them without linking oneself to their value, appreciating them without becoming defined by them, sitting lightly to the benefits and disadvantages that they bring. Francis called such living vivere sine proprio, living without appropriating. For him it meant living without possessing anything. If we wish to tread in Francis's footsteps, we need only seek to live without being possessed by anything. Living without appropriating means not allowing material considerations to prevent us going beyond our limits. It means taking risks in God's name, for God's name, but does not only refer to material objects. Living without appropriating touches every part of our life, from placing all that we have in God's hands to all that we do and all that we are. Nothing is ours. Our will, our good works, our anger over injustices done to us. We may keep none of it for our own benefit, but must give it back to God, who first lent it to us. Living a life of Franciscan poverty means surrendering ourselves to the will of God. We need not be afraid of enjoying God's gifts, but we must always bear them lightly and be ready to share them or to give them away. The supper that Jesus shared with his friends the night before he died is at the heart of our Christian faith. Within it, we find the promise of life, given freely and abundantly. A life that is so rich that all the world cannot contain it. A life that is so small and humble it can be hidden in a piece of bread and a sip of wine.